coming in a little bit early here. So, I'm going to go ahead and click that recording off until we get started here. Hi everyone, welcome to iNACOL's April Teacher Talk webinar. My name is Natalie Abel. I'm a program manager here at iNACOL, and I'm going to be helping to facilitate tonight's webinar, if I can talk. So thank you all so very much for joining us. We really appreciate you taking time out of your very busy schedules to join us, and we're excited to learn together with you all. So if you haven't done so already, please introduce yourself. I saw lots of teachers from Florida, Tennessee, Minnesota, Pennsylvania, Washington State, all over the map joining us today. So very, very excited to have you all. Another teacher from FLVS. So I'm not going to take up too much of your time here this evening. I have just a few housekeeping items to run through quickly. So in the chat box, be sure to ask a lot of questions. We'll certainly save some time at the end for Q&A. And this is a really good opportunity to have some really rich and deep conversations in the chat box. So we want to learn from you just as much as you want to learn from our wonderful presenters here today. So don't be shy and ask lots of questions. That's why we're all here. Today's webinar will be recorded and archived, so we will send you all a follow-up email after today's webinar within the next couple days or so. And it will have a link to the full webinar recording, so you can have access to this entire presentation and conversation today, as well as the slides. So you'll be able to refer back at any time in the future, and feel free to share that with your colleagues and peers as well. And we also encourage you to share what you're learning today on Twitter or other social media network of your choice. We'll throw some information in the chat box for you if you'd like to tag us or tag our presenters today, and we can extend our learning to our networks there as well. And with that, I am so grateful to have new classrooms with us today. We have Susan and we have Jennifer with us. And then we have Emily Reisman, who is a math director with us today too. So I will now turn it over to Sue to kick us off today. So Sue, it's all you. Thanks.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I'm excited to be here. Jennifer, her job is to nudge me when I talk too much. So you're mostly going to hear from me, and then you're going to hear from Emily, who I'm excited that you guys are going to have a chance to learn a little bit about. So thank you all for logging in. I know it's spring break for many teachers, so you guys are either the folks who don't have spring break this week or weren't able to make it to a beach. So I'll try to compete a little bit with that. I'm going to assume that you guys have never heard of new classrooms, though some of you might have, but what I'd like to do is just sort of give you a really high-level overall description of what we're trying to accomplish. And you should feel free to type in your questions, and we're going to keep track of them. I'm probably going to hold off on speaking to them until after Emily gets to share, because I want to make sure that you guys really get to sort of understand the guts of what it means in a real school, in a real classroom. So I was an elementary school teacher myself and a middle school teacher for about 10 years, and then moved into teacher education and online alternative certification programs, and tried to really think a lot about how to figure out the best way to think differently about classrooms and how to help teachers really be able to spend their time on building the craft of teaching. And so the opportunity to come to new classrooms probably about 5 or 6 years ago now was really great, because it's a program that does try to figure out how to meet the needs of every single kid every day. And so that's a little bit about my background. Emily, do you want to share a little bit about yours?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Emily Reisman, and I'm the School of One teacher and math director in Brooklyn, New York, and I've been in my school for 8 years, and I have been a part of the program since we started it at my school, and it really has just been growing and thriving throughout the last 6 years there, and I'm really excited to be here today to talk to all of you.
Awesome. Emily is one of my favorite people because she's done such a great job of implementing this program and as a teacher and then growing as a leader in the school as well. So she's terrific. So just to kind of set the stage, you know, what we're trying to solve is a problem that all of you guys experience every day, which is that in your classrooms there are all of these kids who all have different needs. And this is a description or an image of what that looks like and feels like that all of you know well. And similarly, you also know the challenges of those kids coming to your class with lots of different academic histories, right? So if you're teaching in a 6th grade class, you get kids who are really strong on 5th grade skills or 4th grade skills or 3rd grade skills, or who have already stretched up to 7th and 8th grade skills. And you have this perennial challenge of figuring out how to best serve the needs of all of those students. And so that challenge was one that we wanted to take on board and figure out, is there any substantial, fundamental, different way to think about schooling that really helps teachers think differently about how to support every single kid. And so part of what we know now is that there are lots of teachers who have a really strong understanding of who their students are, what all of their needs might be, and they also know that there's all sorts of resources out in the world today that is really engaging and really exciting to use, but is really hard to figure out how to match up the kids and those products every day. And you might be able to figure out how to get some kids on some of them, but certainly very hard to meet the needs of all of those students. And so this is, we're trying to represent the way that lots of teachers sort of feel under the weight of trying to do that. And so part of what we're trying to do is figure out, well, what does it mean to actually meet the students' needs and meet students where they are? And so what we have figured out how to do is how to figure out what lesson do they need, what modality do they need, and how do you know if they're ready to learn a particular thing? And so we're trying to answer each of those questions every day to figure out what students should be learning. In order to do that, we really think of ourselves as much more than just a product, right? Just another online program for kids to sit on. Part of what we've been thinking about is the operational design of the program, right? Everything from how to reprogram a school, how to schedule sessions and classes, to just the operational logistics of the program, to thinking about maybe schools just need to look really different. Maybe the feel has to be different, the setup of it has to be different, right? So just how does the operational design of the school need to function in order to support a fundamentally different learning model? We also need to think, obviously, about the academic design, right? So things like not just what math skills are kids learning, but how do we help them feel good and successful and cared for and known, right? How do we find a curriculum that meets all different needs and all different levels of understanding? And how do we best help teachers talk about that work together through some coaching? In order to do both the operational design and academic design, what we're using is a whole platform of technology and data to help power that work. And so what we thought was that really the best way to understand what does that mean, what does that look like, is to kind of step into the eyes of a student and sort of walk through a day in their experience to kind of get a good sense of it. So, in this case, here's a young girl, a 7th grader, who comes into math class in the morning, and she is looking up at what looks like the big screens at an airport. And so what she's looking at is to figure out what her schedule for that day is. So she's looking up to see, you know, oh, she's going to learn one-step equations over in a different space. So that's what she does when she first comes in. And then she goes to her first session. And she might, in this case, be working in a small group collaboration on one-step equations, while there's another group working with a different teacher on some other stuff. But what you can see is that what we've done is knock down the walls of 3 different classrooms, and we've taken a whole grade of kids, about 90 kids, and put them into the open space. And part of the reason why we've done that is so that we can figure out how to meet the individual needs of this one student and still group her with other kids who might have that same need. And so the more kids that we have, the groups that we can form to create these daily learning opportunities for her. So she walks in, she goes, so here she's gonna, for example, get a live investigation with this teacher. This is a school in Brooklyn. Joy Yen is the teacher. And so she's learning with him for one session, and then the music is gonna play, and then she's going to move, as will all the other kids in the space, and now she's going to go to a small group collaboration on that same skill with a different group of kids to work on a problem together. And so they do that, and then she's going to take an exit slip at the end of that session, and that data, she could, in this case, have also worked independently online. So, but at the end of the session, she's going to, oh, here it is. She's going to take an exit slip on an assessment platform that we've designed, and she will know if she has demonstrated her understanding of that skill immediately. We use that data to figure out if she should work again tomorrow on that same skill, or if she's ready to move on to something else. And so so she will take that assessment, and then that's the end of her math class for that day. She will move along and go to some other class. And we do all of this in the context of wanting to really redesign learning, not just for the academic purpose of math skills, but to rethink how to develop kids as whole people, right? So our student success framework focuses both on how to develop kids in terms of their social and emotional skills and helping kids to feel a sense of joy and love of learning and know how to learn, as well as things like their skill development and their application and their critical thinking. And so we've, in the images that you saw with our space, all of the decisions we've made are intended to really target different aspects of our student success framework. Great. So somebody had asked a question about assessments. Those are assessments that we've been writing ourselves in-house on an assessment platform that we've been building that ensures that kids, whenever they take an exit slip, for example, will get a variety of different complexity levels of that assessment, because we want to really make sure that we're not focusing on just procedural understanding of math, but a whole range of complexity level around those constructs. And that's true as we stretch kids above grade level and for kids who might be grappling in math. So assessments are really important on our program. They are the engine by which our daily schedules happen to figure out what kids should be learning each day. And then at the end of a 2 to 3 week period, which we call a round, kids take basically a quiz, which we call a playlist demonstration. And they also have a performance-based assessment at the end of their round as well, which is based on these little mini projects that we call tasks, where kids are really asked to defend their work and think and talk about their mathematical reasoning. And then we're evaluating kids' growth 3 times a year through the NWA map, because with a personalized program like this, there is no static curriculum in which you can take standardized sort of interim assessments. For us, what's really important is student growth, and so the NWA map allows us to better understand that growth. And so here are just a few results. So from last school year, 2015-16, on the NWA itself, this gives you a sense of the kind of growth that kids in our program. We're in 38 schools right now across the country, all middle school math, and our kids made 1.4 times the national growth. And what's really exciting for me particularly are the English language learners and the kids with IEPs making such incredible gains relative to a national average, which includes all learners, not just learners in those categories. And so we're really excited about where we are. We only started the program in 2009, so we still have a lot to learn. But so far, there's good work that kids and teachers are doing in the schools. So that's just at the most broadest, highest description of the program itself. What I'd love now is for Emily to kind of take you inside her school, MS88, and sort of share a little bit about her own experience. Take it away, Emily.
Okay, sure. Thank you. So this is our school, and we are a Title I school located in Brooklyn, New York, and we are currently using the program for one of our academies in our school. So our school is broken up into 3 separate academies, and we have about 300 to 350 students that participate in the program each year. So on here we have it broken down by our cohorts. So our 6th graders, we have 118 students, 4 MA teachers, so that's math advisory teachers. So for each grade, each teacher is assigned to a specific classroom, so it's kind of like a homeroom setting where the teachers really get to know the students, get to know their parents, and work with them throughout the whole school year. And the students take their exit slips also with those teachers every day. So it's really the kids that we get to know the best, because we are teaching over 300 students every day, so those are the kids that we really, really know the best. Teaching residents are teachers that rotate throughout the space for different cohorts. So in our school we have special education teachers that fulfill this role. We've had student teachers in the past, and various different adults in the school building have filled those roles. Our 7th graders, we also have 4 classes, and in the 8th grade we're currently servicing 3 classes, which are where the 84 students are coming from. And there's just an outline of our demographics, so we're a very diverse school. We do have a large English language learner population and students with disabilities. And we do have students who are part of integrated co-teaching classes in our program, and it's really worked very well for them. So throughout our time planning, I think that the biggest components for our success were really having the support from our administration. Our principal has been in our building for a very long time, and it took her a long time to really bring this program in. Just to think about where we started, we began a spring pilot program in about May and June, before we actually began the program in the fall. And during that time, we had various math teachers working in the program, and students participated in it just on an after-school basis to kind of see what we needed to succeed. And then during the summertime, we all met, and we met with staff from new classrooms, and we planned out kind of what the program would look like in our building. The construction took place over the summer, knocked down all of the walls, and then we began in September. And we met with our principal, our assistant principals, and our team every day during those first few years. Common planning was really key to success for our team, because you constantly had to make changes and adjustments because it was very new for all the teachers as well as for the students. And when we would have our common planning periods, we would go through all of the student data. We would go through their homework, their tasks, their assessments, and make really targeted intervention programs within our math advisory groups. And every year we're just really growing and thriving with the program. The program has really improved, and the academics are wonderful. But as you guys know, when you are teaching, it's very different than just seeing a program. So I think you just have to kind of see how it fits within your school. We needed to make certain consequences and positive reward systems and different rules for this classroom, because since the space is so unique and so different than the other classrooms that the students go to, there's a unique set of rules within there. But you definitely need to have a consistency within the teacher team, because the students are rotating every single period, and so are the teachers. So you're working with various students, so the expectations had to be super clear, and definitely leaving room for flexibility and changes on a daily basis. And so if we look at our math growth, which Sue was just discussing, so last year our students had 1.8 times the national growth. So we're really proud of those results, and we also take the New York State math exam, and our students are also really excelling on those exams as well. But really the math results are showing all of that individual growth, because like Sue said, it's not the same curriculum for every single student, so it's often hard to compare how they're doing. So the math test, which we do administer once in the fall, in the winter, and then in the spring, really helps us analyze the individual student growth as well as the overall growth for our students. And so since we do have it in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, we're able to really see the growth of students when they enter our building and then when they leave. And so we're having an 8% increase in those students to go on or above grade level. So many of our students come in with many gaps from their elementary school, and so we're helping to fill in those gaps. And also for the students that have really been excelling, it works really well for them, and they're often able to get through more than one, or they're getting to learn different grade levels within 1 year, which is really exciting, and it's really something that we haven't been able to ever do in the past. Okay, so I think we're going to open it up to questions.
As questions start to come in, which I'm excited about. First of all, thanks, Emily, so much. Let me just talk a little bit more about how we figure out how to set this all up for kids. Basically, what happens is that at the start of the school year, we give kids 2 different diagnostics, both the MAP and an in-house assessment that we built ourselves. And so from those assessments, what we're doing is figuring out what we think kids know and what we think they don't know. And from that, we're building individualized skill libraries. And so those individualized school libraries are basically what we're expecting students to experience over the course of the year. But when kids actually experience them, we actually want them to experience multiple different ways of entering into the mathematics itself. So we have 9 different types of approaches to math in which we group kids to learn every day. So that ranges from live investigations and virtual instruction to 2 different collaborative modalities, to some independent learning modalities as well. And so sometimes folks think of us as being really skills-based, but the skill base is really the maps through which we want kids to have the flexibility to move through over the course of the year. But the pedagogy itself is a range of different ways of helping kids explore the mathematics.
So someone had a question about the learning space. I'm going to just go back to that picture as you answer that so folks can see what this learning space looks like. Oops.
Sure. So what's amazing to me, and though Emily, you can speak after me about this as well, is that there's usually a lot of fear that kids with, for a lot of kids, this space is going to feel really overwhelming. And we were just talking to some kids this morning about there's definitely an initial holy cow from kids and teachers. But what is really important, because the space is shared with the teachers, that the teachers really need to come together around norming about routines, particularly at the start of the year, but over the course of the year. So once everybody understands the routines in this space, we really end up with virtually the vast majority of kids really get the hang of the space. You want it to sort of feel like restaurant noise, where everybody can kind of work, but everybody is also kind of talking about their math. And so kids really get the hang of it pretty quickly. Emily, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. So at the beginning of the school year, we do a huge orientation with the students, and we do practice modalities with them where we have the students work together in a small group collaboration. We have them walk throughout the room. We play music, so they really get to know the space really well and what's expected of them in each space. And then it's really able to create that respect for the classroom and for each other. And if they know that they're doing a virtual lesson that period, then they know that it should be a quiet section. And then if it's a live instruction section, there are different expectations. And we review all of this with them, and we have it up on our walls, and it's super clear. And it's just really making sure that they understand how to work in this space. And it's definitely something that takes an adjustment, even with teachers understanding your volume level of your voice, because you can hear everybody in the room. So just, I think, really setting everything super clear, doing a lot of practice, and then making adjustments as you need it. We have the noise cancellation devices on our ceilings, which help. We have a carpet, which helps, and the bookcases definitely also help to kind of keep that noise level in.
So there's a question here about, do we tell the students which groups they're going to, or do they get to make choice? So what happens is that the whole system is dependent on students' exit slips, right? So if the student passes the exit slip, they are making, we're going to use that as the judgment to figure out if they need to come back and work longer on that skill, or if they're ready to move on to something else. There are a lot of rules around which modalities kids can get when. So when kids are first on an exposure, if it's their first exposure to a skill, there's only a couple of modalities that they're going to get. They're either going to get a live investigation with a teacher or a virtual instruction. So we're really making the determination of what groups kids are going to be working on. Again, partly because it's dependent on whether they've passed the skill themselves, and it's also dependent on what the other kids in the space need to learn on that same day. So we've been working really hard on building student agency into the program, and so we do have some additional elements to support that area. So if kids see in their skill library that there's some skill that they think that they know, that what they can do is request approve it for that skill, which will give them an exit slip so that they can demonstrate that they understand it and not have to be scheduled for that skill. So we've been building pieces of agency into the program, but that core function of who schedules the kids' lessons for the day is really coming out of the power of our technology and our team.
And Emily, do you want to maybe explain to folks how you get those lessons every day? So every day, folks might not realize new classrooms, as Stu said before, we work in schools across the country, so every night about 13,000 kids get a schedule is sent out to teachers across the country so that the next day they can get their personalized curriculum. So Emily, do you want to maybe describe what it's like to get those, when you get your lessons and how you do your planning?
Sure. So every night around 4:30 or 5, we get an email that our schedules are ready, and then the teachers log on to the portal. We each have our own login, and you're given your schedule for the following day. So it'll let you know if you're teaching a live investigation, what topic you're teaching, what students you're working with, and so then you go ahead and you start that planning at night. So the planning aspect is definitely different than when you're in a traditional classroom, but then throughout the day you're not doing all live investigations. You're also facilitating small group collaboration. You're facilitating the virtual instruction. So it's really able to look at those schedules and understand what students you're going to have, how many tries those students have had on their skills, and who you really need to work with the following day. And then when the students come in, they'll see the big board that we have them in the hallway at our school. They'll see what section they're going to for that period and what modality they're learning, and then they go right in. And they have their own unique login for our portal as well.
Sure. I see another question on here about exceptional learners. We're scrolling through.
Sorry, we're scrolling through here.
I want to talk a little bit about the way that we organize which skills kids work on. Math exceptional. So we have a few pilots going on right now. For most of our schools, what happens is, let's say it's a 6th grade cohort. What we do is create those skill libraries anchored in key 6th grade skills. So we have a subset of, we took the Common Core standards, we broke them into smaller bite-sized skills from which we created this skill map. And a subset of those 6th grade skills are ones that we say are really key targeted skills. And so, so what will happen is, for kids who have some gaps, what we'll do is for a given 6th grade skill, we're going to drop down and grab maybe a 4th grade skill and a 5th grade skill that the kids haven't demonstrated an understanding of in service of that 6th grade skill. For kids who haven't been grappling with that math, we might stretch them up from that 6th grade skill up into 7th and 8th grade skills. So that's how the program generally has worked. And what we found is that the kids who grapple with mathematics made really incredible gains in the program, and the kids who come into the program on or above grade level were making gains, but not as dramatically so. And so this year, what we piloted was taking some of those 6th graders, those 6th grade cohorts with kids who are on or above grade level, and instead of anchoring their skill libraries in 6th grade skills, what we did was anchor them in 7th grade skills. Right? So we just moved a whole host of them. Instead of moving them to 7th grade in a skill and in a school, we're bringing those skills to those kids. And so by re-anchoring them up a grade, what it's meant is that they can stretch their learning in ways that is much more expansive than what we have been doing in the other schools. And so that's a pilot we've been doing both in some middle schools and in some 8th grades particularly. And it's actually gone incredibly well. So those kids seem to be making, while in the past they might have been making maybe a year's worth of gains, they've already sort of lapped that this year so far. So it's a really interesting experiment where we're making a much stronger assumption about what those kids can do this year. So, Emily, do you want to talk a little bit about laptop access and whether or not you need a one-to-one system in the schools?
Sure. Yeah, so you need one-to-one for the students when they're in the classroom. So we have 120 laptops now in our classroom. So then a 6th grader, a 7th grader, and an 8th grader, they all share the laptop. But when they're in the classroom, they do each need their own computer. This year, we've replaced our old laptops with Chromebooks, which are super affordable, and they've really been working well with the program.
Yeah, so the system that we're using to collect data, we have our own internal tech team that are just super nerdy, and so part of what we've been building is a set of algorithms to help collect that data. So when the kids take the exit slips, it comes into our data systems. We're analyzing that data to then figure out how to group the kids and which groups of kids to assign different teachers to. So that's a lot of the internal technical work that we've been doing here at New Classrooms.
Yeah, and if you're ever in New York City, I know folks are here from across the country, we actually do a back office tour where we show people exactly how we do that. There's also a human team that helps work with them. So there's the algorithm, and then there's human beings looking at every schedule every day before it goes out and sort of quality checking that.
Mm-hmm.
And then teachers like Emily get a chance to look at it, and they can make adjustments too if they need to. But it's a fun thing to do if you're ever in New York City to come by. We take people through there all the time, and you can really see how those schedules are made. Looking to see if there's any more questions. Natalie, do you see any more questions?
Oh, here. You shouldn't see the same thing on laptop that others in the same group do. So each student has their own personalized portal. And on that portal, we'll tell them what skills they're working on for a 2 to 3 week time period, and it'll give them a target to reach. We have this little point system thing. It'll also tell them their schedule for the day, and it'll tell them when their quiz is, and it's also through which that they can see the history of all of their exit slips and all of their learning, and they can access their lessons through that too. So when they go to access their lessons, those are all personalized as well. So kids don't see the same things on their laptops unless they, if it's a small group that are all working on a project together, they would see that same content.
Well, we're still reading through your questions.
They can access their portal from home, definitely. We definitely have a lot of parents who log in as their kids to see how their kids are doing. Emily, do you want to talk at all about how anything has changed with relationships with parents with the program?
Yeah, absolutely. So the parents are super involved with using the portal at home, and so are the students. So when the students take an exit slip in class, the parents know that when they log onto their computer that they can see exactly how their child did that day, what lesson they were learning, where they can practice the skills. So it's a really great resource that they can access anywhere. Our kids will also access it on their cell phones. They can do practice questions. They can see their schedule for the following day. So it's really been an amazing resource. And then parents will email me with little questions about, how can I help support my child on this specific skill. And then we train the parents. We have orientation with the parents in the beginning of the year as well, so that they're able to be really familiar with it, because there's so many amazing resources through the portal, and the parents can really check on every single day exactly how the child's doing.
Emily, do you want to take the homework one as well?
Sure, yeah. So every school does it a little bit differently from what I've heard, but there are individualized homework packets that are available for the students every week, and so those come out on Monday, and we print them out, and the students hand them in on Friday. We also will sometimes supplement that with some online work, but those homework packets are always available, and since they are personalized, it's really what the students are actually going to be learning in class that week, which is really great. And then
and what's
the
great
students
is
will work on the packets at home. They'll work on their task project packets. Yeah.
I was just going to add, Emily, if the kids feel like they struggled on something in school, in addition to the homework, they can log into their portal and do some what we call watch and practice. Just so that maybe they didn't pass their exit slip, they want to, get a little extra juice before school tomorrow, and so they can access digital lessons at any time, at any place as well. So we incorporate that too.
And students, I don't know, Emily, if kids are doing this in your district, but they can also do the prove it.
Yeah.
So if they want to practice, if they want to show, I already know a skill, they can prove it by doing it outside of class time sometimes too, right?
Well, they would take the prove it in class, but they would request it. Maybe they went home, they did a watch and practice, and they're like, I got this. And then they're going to go into school the next day and say to Emily, I want to take a prove it. And then she would say, all right. And the kid would take it and pass it and feel great about themselves. So, is new classroom in the system to be purchased by school district or individual schools? So we, and our classrooms, we're not currently purchased by individual classrooms, but we do work with a lot of districts around the country and a lot of individual schools as well. We work in charters, in regular district schools, we work in independent schools, and so the whole gamut. Right now it's really important for us to not work with individual classrooms because, again, what we're looking for is a relatively large cohort of kids in order to cluster them onto the same skills that they need to learn. And so it's really hard to do that. The smaller the number of kids that we have to work with, the harder and harder it is to do that. So that's why right now we're really working with district partners and individual schools.
We're just scrolling down to read your questions. Oh, this is a long one. Bear with us. I think we have to read through these. Hold on one second while you bear with us.
Students who are not very self-motivated. Don't move quickly enough to cover all skills. Okay, so one thing to note is that if a kid doesn't pass their exit slip, what we do is usually give them 2 or 3 tries on that exit slip for that skill. So, and that varies depending on the complexity of the skill itself. And if a kid takes an exit slip, doesn't pass it, takes it on the next day, doesn't pass it, takes it on the 3rd day, doesn't pass it, we'll pause them and move them on to a different skill. What I don't want is for kids to just sort of, bang their heads against the wall and get really frustrated. That skill will come back into their future sets of skills, their playlist, when it's mathematically related to future content as well. So that's one thing, is that we're moving kids off of skills before they get too frustrated. So that's one thing. Emily, do you want to talk about motivation and how kids are engaging with the program at 88?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that that's really where the teachers come in, and that's where our math advisory groups come in. And so if I see a student who's either really struggling or kind of just sitting there and not doing all of that work, that's when I'll conference with them during our math advisory time, during exit slips. We do an after-school program, a morning program. So that's really where that the human aspect, I think, really comes into place. But I think that overall, the self-motivation in students has really improved greatly since they're in this program. They are able to succeed better than if they were in a classroom where they were, you know, just if the teacher just moves on because they're not getting it. These students will get another opportunity. We do encourage them to do the videos and review their exit slips at home. That's something that I've seen to be super helpful, where we're having the students do reflections also on their exit slips daily. It's just something we've added into our school. And then when the students go home, they'll review their exit slips, and then they'll come in with any questions. So just kind of setting up those other routines within this classroom. And since we have our math advisory groups, that's really the best time to really focus on those kids.
So somebody had written a comment about trying to fit laptops onto desks and stuff like that. I love the comment because it really references the slide that one of my earlier slides around operational design as well as instructional design, because it's easy to get stuck into the academic design and all the stuff that we were just talking about. But that notion of that kids don't have enough space on their desks to put their notebook and their laptop, that's the very kind of question that we spend thousands of hours thinking about. And so in a lot of schools, some of the routines that we have will be about putting the laptops in the middle of the tables and making sure that there are notebook routines and that all of the kids are experiencing that. It's also why we spend an awful lot of time figuring out what is the right furniture for schools to order with this program, how should it be set up, how can we make it the most flexible, all of those kinds of things. So I love that comment because I think that's a person who's near and dear to my heart. Is there a group size that works best? You know, somewhere between 80 and 120 is super sweet. We have some cohorts who go down lower than that. Some are 60, some are even 40 now. You can see at MS88, they are right in the sweet spot. And so that's a size that we know we have enough kids to figure out how to cluster them onto common needs. And when it gets much larger than that, because we have some very large schools, we usually will break those into separate cohorts.
Sue and I just scroll up. We have more questions coming in.
Would it work well for 100% online school? The current design of the program wouldn't work great for with 100% online because we have some modalities that really require kids to collaborate with each other. Now down the road, we can certainly figure out a design in which kids could collaborate online, maybe through some Blackboard work. And there are certainly some creative ways to create a future offering that might be really exciting 100% online. It's not the current design. We're still trying to figure out how to make this work as well as we can, so there's a lot to figure out still. We are doing a pilot in 9th grade this year, a remediation algebra program, and the kids have done incredibly well. So we're very excited about that. I had been slightly resistant to it for a while until we really did a scrub of some of the content because I wanted to make sure that it didn't feel too young for those kids. And in fact, they've done really, really well. So we don't go any higher right now than algebra, so we're just using it as a remedial program for algebra.
We're just scrolling to see if there's any other questions. Because you guys might be questioned out. It's getting late in the day on the East Coast probably, and towards the end of the day too on the West Coast. Any more questions anyone wants to have Emily or Sue answer?
Jennifer, I think if people have any more questions, they can, of course, add them in the chat box. But I have a bunch of questions myself. But I will ask a two-pronged question. This is probably for both Sue and Emily. I'm really curious to hear what your biggest challenges are in general, just personalizing math for middle school students. And then I'm also really interested in, we have a lot of teachers in the webinar too. What if you had great tips for those teachers who are really trying to make this happen in their own classrooms, what advice or recommendations would you give them?
Emily, do you want to take that first?
Sure. So I think some of the challenges that come up are really having to do with the space and learning how to teach in that space and learning how to have students interact within that space, since it's so unique and it's like nothing that I had ever taught him before and that most people have never taught him before. It's also a challenge to get your schedule the evening before, so it just changes the way that teachers are planning. But really, to succeed, it's all about having the teachers collaborate. It's about building the leadership within the teacher team and finding the right teachers to be a part of it. You know, there's ways that you can pilot aspects of the program within your own classroom, but the way that the program really is able to group students and assess them and get the results so quickly is incredible. And it's data that I'm then able to use when I'm working with my students, when I'm working with parents, and it's data that I never would have had before.
I would just add a couple of things. One is, I think for me, we have some places where the space isn't as open. We have some schools now where they're doing it in traditional classrooms. For me, there's just such incredible power in teaching in open space, because if you can have a spirit of true collaboration, teachers can learn so much from each other and really build their skills. And so some of the challenges are around helping teachers teach in a whole variety of ways, particularly if they're used to teaching in one particular style, if you will. And so that's a little bit of a challenge. And sort of helping teachers be comfortable with the fact that the kids are all going to be working on different things at the same time. So for teachers who are very comfortable with their set curriculum, doing their thing the usual way, the change management can be pretty powerful until they get the hang of it. But then they do.
Natalie, what was the second part of your question? I'm losing the thread now.
No, that's okay. I just asked for any tips or advice or recommendations that some of the teachers who might be joining us today might be able to take into their own math classrooms, and you know, just tips on how you do this really tough work and bring it into your own classroom.
Well, I mean, I think it's hard to take this program into your classroom whole hog, right? So I would say that for teachers to figure out the one or two things that seem doable for you if you're not able to kind of bring this thing into your whole school. Certainly you are welcome to provide the contact to your principal or your district folks to say, this looks interesting, and that would be great. But on an individual teacher basis, I think just trying to dip your toe into how to let kids work in small groups on the same problem and build their comfort talking together about their mathematics while you're working with a different group. You know, that sort of centers feel is something that a lot of schools that are thinking about adopting us, let's say in a year from now, start playing with in that pre-adoption time. So for elementary school teachers, they tend to be pretty comfortable with that. Middle school teachers are usually sometimes less experienced with it. So playing with groups and centers is a nice interim step. Emily, would you add anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think just if you have the technology,
Nope.
start.
Natalie, do you
Yeah, I was just going to say, if you have any technology, I think starting to incorporate that within the classroom, getting students comfortable with doing some of that work, trying different station work activity where the students are working on different skills within the classroom, and also possibly maybe working with another teacher in the same classroom and just kind of opening up your classroom in that way to become more comfortable being around and teaching in front of other people.
Yeah, it's a great idea. There's a question here about cross-curricular work. Right now we're very math-centric. We do have our tasks, which are like mini projects that are applied learning. So they are connecting math skills within a context, a real-world context. So they'll often use sort of science-based ideas to put those tasks within, but we're not currently working explicitly to connect in schools beyond math. So we're not creating math STEM programs in schools right now or explicitly cross-curricular work, but a lot of our content is applied.
I also think people use, and I think, and Sue will correct me, and Emily will correct me if I'm wrong, MS88 might do this, is use other things like a summit for some other courses, but use us for math because math is so particular. So you can have this personalized learning, district-wide approach, school-wide approach, and use us for math while using something else for some of your other subjects that seems to work very well for some of our partner schools.
Natalie, did you have another question?
I don't think we have any other questions. Sarah might be typing. Other than that, there might be a couple of people typing in the chat box. We might have a couple quick questions coming in. We do have a few more minutes. So yeah, if you have any remaining questions, feel free to, oh, Sarah said no. She doesn't have a question. And I think Jennifer might be typing as well, and maybe Chris. But I think that's probably good for today, unless another one comes in here at the very end. I would just like to say you guys are doing such tremendous work in classrooms all over the country, and really excited to see and follow how the 9th grade pilot is going as well. So excited to hear that you guys are expanding and growing as well. And Emily, it sounds like you guys are doing really fantastic work and helping kids get really prepared in math, and that's so important. So I would just like to extend my sincerest thanks to you both and to Jennifer as well for joining us and sharing your great knowledge and your model, and these tremendous designs and open learning spaces are just amazing for kids. So we really do appreciate it, and thank you very much to everyone else for attending this evening. We have other webinars on our website, so feel free to browse, and we hope to see you all in the future. And also just a quick plug, the iNACOL Symposium is in Orlando, Florida this year, and we recently just opened attendee registration. So if you are interested in attending the leading conference in personalized learning, make sure you register before July to get those early bird prices. So we encourage you to go ahead and visit our website and register there, and bring your whole team and schools, and it's a great opportunity to learn and meet other innovators as well. So again, thank you to Sue and Jennifer and to Emily. We really do appreciate your great work, and we hope to see you all on future webinars.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Natalie. And for anyone who, we'll make our own plug. If you're still interested and want to know more about the model, there's some videos and things you can explore at newclassrooms.org that takes you inside the classroom and shows you what kids are doing. And as I said before, we do mini tours throughout the year of schools, including Emily's school at MS88. So if you're interested in a tour, just visit the website. It'll just give you some more knowledge. I know this is a lot of information to throw at you, and so you can explore some videos and things to help you learn more about the model.
Jennifer, you were great.
Thank you. Have a great evening, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.